Good morning, everybody. So today I would like to go over one of my favorite things that I like to do, which is building websites. Now, I've built websites in many different ways over the years. I've used WordPress, I've done it in HTML, I've used various editors. Uh, Nowadays, I think the way that web design is going for most people is going to be through vibe coding. And of course, there are so many different tools that you can use for vibe coding. There are literally tools um, that make it really easy. You can install things on your computer. You could do it from a web browser. Um, but today, what I'm going to show you is a live build. I'm going to do this in real time on the stream, and you can watch me as I go. You're going to see all of the bumps in the road, all of the planning. I don't even have a logo. All I have right now is a concept. And so this is, of course, going to be a fictitious cell phone repair store. And I don't, and as far as the only thing I have is a name, we're just going to call it Cracked Up Phone Repair, something along those lines. And that's what we're starting, right? Because if you're a business owner and you're looking to start your site, it's possible you have a logo already, but maybe you don't. But you definitely have a name. You definitely know what you want to do. Um, and the real question is, do you want to build it yourself or pay somebody? And I think I can make a case that you could possibly just build this yourself. And so, of course, let's take an example of what can be done if you vibe code, right? So this past week, I put together a site called LasVegasBestInternet.com. And you can go there right now. And so essentially what you have, and this is on another screen, so I don't know how bad this looks, but at any rate, so what I built this site for is for people who are sick and tired of Cox Internet in the Las Vegas area. And so it's been loaded up with affiliate links and other links to help people decide what kind of internet they might want to step into. And so overall, I probably spent 8 to 10 hours in total on this. It wasn't in one shot. I don't know how long I'm going to be on the stream today, but again, I want to go from start to finish. But, there was a lot of prompts. There was a lot of time that I put into it, it felt like, but it wasn't that much. And so by the time we get done here, I want you, the viewer, to look at this and ask yourself, do I want to pay somebody else to do this? Or is it worth 8 to 10 hours of my own time to try and just build a website myself and save money? I can make a case for either. Uh, First off, if you're busy and you don't want to mess with it, which many business owners are, yeah, pay somebody like me to do it. But if you don't have the time, or if you do have the time, maybe you're transitioning from a full-time job and you're trying to step into, entrepreneurship for the first time, and you do have a couple hours a night because you don't have the clientele to build a site, let's go through and see if that's you. Let's see what this looks like. So there is, of course, some things that you would need, and I'm going to put this up on screen. I don't have a team that does this. This is just me. Everything you see that I do is just me. So just bear with me a second. I am in Streamlabs for the first time in a long time, so I don't remember all of the things. We're going to add a new So, all right. So in order to build a website, in order to get started, you're going to need web hosting. You're going to need a domain name. You're going to need, and if you're going to do AI, you're going to need an IDE. Uh, you could use Claude, you could use Codex, and and in this one, we're going to use one called OpenCode because it's free, and there are some really low cost options uh, for doing it, for making use of it. Hold on, let's pick some colors. We are also going to need a logo. We're going to need content. We're going to use AI generated content for this example. Um, it can be said, and depending on how you prompt it, if AI content is even logical, maybe you need to pay somebody. But we're going to assume you're either going to write it yourself or AI generate it. You're a solo show, right? So we're going to just assume, and we're going to need an FTP client. And let me find a color that makes sense, and we'll put all of this. And so we're going to put, hold on. Yeah, hold on. There's got to be like a background effect to this. Yeah, there is. All right. So just to recap, we need web hosting. We need a domain name. We need an IDE like Claude, Codex, or OpenCode. We're going to need to create a logo. We're going to need content, and we're going to need an FTP client. Um, In my example, I already have the web hosting, but if you go to lasvegasbestinternet.com/business, which is the link in the description, you can actually just click that link and you will have a couple choices there that I recommend that I know to be good. Domain name, those same hosts will do it, but you could go anywhere. Maybe I already have one. I also like Pork Bun for a registrar. They're pretty decent. I used to use Namecheap for many years, but they got greedy and expensive like everybody else does eventually. So we'll see how long Pork Bun lasts. Um, we are going to talk about the logo because before we can lay out the site design, we actually have to have the logo because the logo is going to help us define the site colors, the theme, and what it's going to look like. Because if those things don't sync up, then the site looks like it looks like a disaster if you don't do it that way. So if you have these things, then let's go on and let's start working on the logo. All right, so for the logo, if we don't have a site or we don't have it, what I like to do is I'll go into Gemini and I'll use it to generate a logo. So we've got to prompt this thing. Um, if I can type, I need a logo for a cell phone repair shop website. Okay. The company is called Crack upsell. And by the way, if somebody out there actually has a business called this, I'm sorry. But I think it's a horrible name, which is why I'm using it for an example. But I don't know, people name their stuff really funny things these days. So if I accidentally steal anyone's copyright, this is on video, you see I didn't do it on purpose. All right, so we need a logo for a cell phone repair shop website. We know what the company is called. So we need to further tell this because some more defining parameters, because a logo shouldn't have more than a few colors, right? If it's too busy, it's too busy. The logo should only use 3 to 4 colors. It should be simple. The logo should also look good in print because you're going to also use the same logo on signage. You're going to use it on banners and business cards and flyers and all sorts of printed advertising. And we're going to do different things with that logo, and you'll see what comes up. You'll see what I'm talking about because, yeah, so let's go ahead and let's see if Gemini is going to give us something that makes sense. It usually takes it a few seconds, and it might take us a few tries. So this does look good, and I think we're probably going to use this, but if we look at what I did here with this logo here, this is more horizontal oriented. This is not. That's not going to look good because we're going to do something similar to this where we'll have a header and it's got to go up here. So that would be good like on on a business card. That would be good on advertising. You could possibly use it on your sign. But we need to tweak this. We need this adjusted. This. Uh, phone should be used in line with the text. It must fit in a without causing the text. And remember, you've got to build sites and you got to make these things so they're compatible and easy to use for people who have issues with vision. And I say that knowing full well that what I did on Las Vegas Best Internet right now might not be, and maybe I should increase the size of that bar, but we're not working on that site in this video. We're going to build this one. So let's see what Gemini gives us this time. Um, and remember, AI is designed so you can just speak to it naturally, almost like you would a person. I say almost because sometimes you get away with it. And now we have this would look perfect, but we're going to do a couple things. So first and foremost, we're going to download the full size. It takes it a second. It should be prompting us for a box here in a second. This is the only thing I don't like. Documents, LV site build, cracked up. Yeah, so I already have a folder for this. This. Yeah, we're just going to call it a folder called graphics. And this one is more like for printing, right? And this one here is going to be, yeah, this one's going to be our logo, our website logo, but we're going to have some issues in a second, okay? This is why because if we open this up, did that really do that? Okay, so yes, it did. That's really strange. Let's try this again. I've actually never seen Gemini do that. So again, this is why we do these things live. This is why I show you live. Yeah, so sometimes apparently that, so yeah, let's try it one more time. Logo site. No, we'll probably try a few more tries. Yeah, so that is clearly a problem. Let's try this. This is, yeah, so if we do this the right way, yeah. So that is one of those fun, delightful things about AI tools is they have these problems, they break, and it's important to know this. So many people go out into building these websites with their AI tools, and they think that this tool is this magic box where you just tell it what you want to do. And this is the shit that it does. So you have to know that you're going to have to play with it some. You're going to have to know that there's workarounds. So in this case, I don't know if you noticed, but what I did is I opened the image up in and I right-clicked it and downloaded it through the browser instead of letting the thing generate whatever it felt like generating. So now we have logos, but now we've got a new problem. Because if we look at the logo site, and this is why this isn't that big of a problem for me, because let's be honest here, the logo in print was 5.1 megabytes, and that's really large. So the JPEG is compressed. For those that don't know, PNG, Portable Network Graphics, is a lossless image format, which is why it's so large. JPEG is a lossy format, as they call it, which is why we can go down to 35.4 kilobytes, and we have a logo that still looks good. But there's a few things that goes wrong with this. We can't just use this in a site yet, because if you take a look, you see all this white area. What we actually want is to shrink that logo down to something like that, so we don't have all of that white space. And we can 100% save that as a screenshot. But since most of you watching this may not be on Linux or know how to do that, I'm going to take the long route and we're going to show you how to open this. We're going to open this in GIMP. It's an open source Photoshop alternative. All right. So I'm not in GIMP every single day. So I don't pay attention to everything and remember everything off the top of my head. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this cutting tool. Hold on, let me get the name of it. What is it called? Crop tool. Crop tool. Yeah, I should have known that. We're going to hit Control X. And then we're going to paste as new image. No, hold on. Close it. Discard changes. Okay. So we're going to, there's a way, hold on, paste as. Yeah, but that's essentially it. So what we have is that. So now let's save this. We're going to call that logo site. So first off in GIMP, when you save it, it's their XCF format. That's not what you upload to your site. We're just going to call that logo site banner.jpg. Um, and we wanted, it's fine that we export it that way. So in theory, if I did this right, it's saved it as a PNG. So now we have the actual logo that we need. You see the difference? Because if we go back to this, you're going to have all that white space, which was fine for this. Because if you're going to use this for a print, whoever's doing your graphics, maybe you, is going to go through a similar process to shrink it. But this is actually what we want for our website. We don't, and there's probably a little more white space over here than over here. If you're OCD enough, that's going to bother you. So we're going to copy this file and we're going to put it in here. And we're going to rename that just logo.png so we can close our GIMP. We don't need it anymore. And now we're going to go into a tool called Open Code. So I want to talk real quick about something that's super duper important and a theme that you're going to see me do quite a bit. Anytime there's a bum rush where everybody is gravitating to a certain tool, like for the last year, everybody's been head over heels over Claude Code. I don't understand why, other than it's good marketing, because from a technical, usable perspective, I don't think it's that good. Anthropics had a history of screwing up quotas, being very stingy on their quotas. Then they had this deal with SpaceX to get a data center and use one of their data centers. And of course, that increases capacity by a lot. So then they went and doubled everybody's quotas. It wasn't until that point that a $20 a month plan actually felt like a $20 a month plan. I hate the 5-hour limits on those, but those are more standardized and you just can't get away from those. You kind of sort of can, and I do, and I'll show you how I get around that problem. But I use this thing called Open Code. It's Open Code's desktop. They have a CLI for the more savvy people. I just like the graphical tool. It works better for me. I when I started vibe coding, I was doing stuff in anti-gravity. So in the case of just trying to have something to teach people how to build something for low to no cache in a future video, I definitely want to visit going into anti-gravity, which you can use for free with a free Gmail account. I think everybody has a Gmail account. It's worth signing up for, even if you don't use it for mail, um, just to use the anti-gravity. But if you pay 20 bucks a month, you get their pro account. I think they did F up the limits a few months ago, and it's one of the reasons I stopped building in anti-gravity primarily. I'm willing to look at it again, but I can tell you right now, after they did that, their $100 a month plan felt like it was gimped to the same levels as their $20 a month plan was before. Um, to put things into perspective, it used to be on the $100 a month plan, you could just go balls to the wall and dev all day building something and not have any problems. That that hasn't been the case in a while, and so I don't like to recommend tools like that. except if you're learning or if you do have the budget. Um, there are tools, and again, don't use Claude. Claude's going to suck your money up. And Anthropic, if you don't like me telling people to do that, that's a you problem that you need to fix. I'm just the guy that's telling people how to be smart, and being smart doesn't mean using Claude. Sorry. But we're going to go back, and so we have our logo, and well, first and foremost, let me get us back over. There we go. So we're going to So the first thing you're going to see is I've already opened up the directory in there. You would typically click this plus sign button here to open project. You feed it the directory. Um, to save time, I have put this up here. So we already have a new session. There's a few things that I'm going to show you without, if this is the first time you've looked at this app or anything like it. Most everything is going to be very similar format. Anti-gravity is like this. Um, Cursor, I think, is like this. But essentially, you've got your prompt box. This is where all the text, where you're going to see it interact, where you're going to interact with it. This is where you're going to prompt it to do stuff. You can click things here, and you can feed it images and files and do stuff. This here, these down here are very, very important. So first you've got, this is where you select the model that you're going to use. And my open code is, I have two subscriptions that I use. I use Nexum Router, which is through Diagram. This is the one that I like to focus the most on because it doesn't have any hourly limits. I actually couldn't explain their business model to you, so I don't know if they're profitable or however long they're going to exist, but I'm going to ride the gravy train for as long as I can, and I think you should too. The other one that I'm subscribed to is Open Code Go, which is a $10 a month subscription. If you sign up for it now, they're probably still running the promo where the first month is $5. Obviously, it's not very much. It's a very low cost tool or a subscription. It's really designed for people who are on a low budget. Um, Somebody that wants to experiment. They have a boatload of models that you can try. Um, but for this video, and unless I change it, we're going to use Nexum Router. So what Nexum Router does is it takes your requests and it decides for you which model it's actually going to send to. You've got DeepSeek, there's even OpenAI GPT 5.5 Instant, which is a really small, low-cost model, the Tencent HY3, and forgive me for butchering the pronunciation, but the Xiaomi Mimo 2.5. But we're going to leave it on Nexum Router because it's going to do just fine. And you'll see that Nexum Router does something that nobody else does. It announces itself, and you'll see this a lot. Just ignore it. It's not a problem. It definitely makes things interesting with my OpenClaw bots, though, because sometimes I'll be working on things, and normally it suppresses it, but occasionally it just says, oh, if anybody asks, I'm Nexum Router by Diagram. It's so weird. It's out of context, but it doesn't actually cause any functional issues. But the most important thing that we're just in starting out is this little box here. Build versus plan. The difference between build and plan, by default, it's build. So like what that means is if you say, tell it to make my homepage, it actually makes your homepage. If you put it in plan mode, it'll actually take you through a series of questions. You can actually have a full conversation with it, so it builds a comprehensive plan. And if you do that first, instead of going straight into build, your results will be a million times better. So we're going to put this in plan mode. And what I like to do is tell it, we need to plan the site theme starting with colors. analyze the file logo.png and tell the best colors we should use for our site. And there we go. We're going to take it a second. It's going to do its thing. It's probably going to do this IM next some router by diagram first thing, and then it'll go with everything else. So right now it's reading our file, our logo file. It's checking the colors, and it's going to tell us here in a few seconds just what it's supposed to do. So while this is working, I like to develop on Linux. I have tried writing and building on things like Windows and Mac OS. I think Mac OS is a close second. Windows is terrible. If you're trying to vibe code and you're on Windows, you can do it. Uh, Anti-gravity, open code desktop, that works on Windows. And if you're building something simple like what we're building right now, you can follow along pretty easily. But you might hit some walls if you're on Windows, where you're going to see me do some stuff like setting up a local dev environment. It's going to be far easier on Linux than it is on Windows. And in case you're wondering, I like to use Zorin OS. It's 18.1. It feels really polished. So I got to get a drink of water. All right, so what we have, and by the way, it doesn't show us anything like a live view of the site until we actually load it into a browser. So it does a color analysis. So it can't view the image directly. What that means is it doesn't have vision. Some LLMs do have a feature called vision, and essentially it almost can look at a picture the same way we do. But whatever model the Nexum router just picked, it doesn't have that. I'm actually not sure that any of their models supports vision, but there's ways around it. So again, um, because I'm on Linux, it's able to pick tools natively. And like we have on my system something called Pillow, and it is a command line tool that allows it to extract data from images. So it gave us, and this could look a little better, but it's a little table. So primary color is dark navy blue, that's our text. The accent is something called burnt orange, and the background is this off-white. Um, and we're gonna use that data, those colors, to build the tool. And so, just in case you want to remember, so what we have, remember, our primary is this color right here. The accents, this orange crack. In the background, it's not quite white. I don't know if you can see it on the stream or not, but it's not quite white, and that's okay. We're just going to leave that open. So now that it knows the colors, we're still in plan mode. Now we need to start building the design. We're going to give it some context, though. We're going to tell it about the subproject. I am building a site for A's. I want it to be modern. And we should use, and so this is the point at which I can get better results than somebody who doesn't know about these things, which is why I share what I know, which is why I'm doing this. We need to use HTML, JavaScript, and Tailwind CSS. Tailwind CSS is It's like it uses it's CSS. It's a CSS kit as they call it, and it's the one that is the most popular with most of your modern site. Like if you've ever like looked at an older site that might use something called Bootstrap and wondered why it looks like something from 10 years ago, it's because it is. And you can still build sites in Bootstrap. People still build sites in Bootstrap. There's a lot of WordPress themes that are based on Bootstrap, and it doesn't look awful. It's meant to be responsive, but it's for at this point in time when you compare it to some of the sites that are super modern and super fancy. And Tailwind CSS isn't the only one. Uh, there's also a lot more deeper layers than we can go into. Uh, More themes where you can actually buy themes or download themes, and because that's something that would take more time, like if you're trying to pick themes and find themes, you're probably looking at somewhere an additional 3 to 5 hours just mulling through themes and picking the one that makes sense and then adapting it to your site, even with AI. So we should have. We're going to, because this is not going to be a real site, we're going to use a fake BS phone number. The footer should have social links, Instagram, yep, and OX. Again, this is just not a real site, so I'm gonna reword that. And so yeah, it looks like I fat fingered the keyboard a little bit. That shouldn't break anything, by the way, but it definitely causes problems in the command shell. So if I'm in here, that can cause some problems. All right, so this is what I like about plan mode. This is what I like about open code. This is one of the things I feel it does better than Instagram, or not Instagram, good God. What it does better than anti-gravity. Anti-gravity does it differently, and it just feels extremely tedious. Um, I used Claude for like a month, so I don't have the most experience with it. Like it took less than a month before. Like I probably actively used it for like 2.5 weeks. Bitched about it the first week and a half, but hear me out. Um, I like this style so much better. So we want this to be a multi-page site. If I wanted to make this a quick build video, I would probably have made that a single page site. But we're going to go with a multi-page site. And so we're a phone store, right? So we're probably fixing screens. We're doing that. We're doing that. We're doing that. Yeah. Yeah, let's roll with that. Oh, yeah. Do you have a physical address? So in this, so we want this. If this is a real site, and so this is where we go look back up at our logo, and the truth is, cracked up is 2 words. So we don't want that second one. And you could type your own answer, but that's okay. So we submit. Now it's thinking. We're still in plan mode, so it's not writing the code yet. And I'm going to skip a few steps for this build. So typically I like to set up what's called htaccess. So it strips file extensions. So instead of going to like, mysite.com slash screenrepair.html, it would be just mysite.com slash screenrepair. For the purposes of the demo, I may or may not do it, just depends on how long it takes. So yeah, placeholder address and hours. Yeah, and for this build, again, if you're doing this for real, you know what your business is supposed to do. So you're going to want it. Yeah, so for the contact form, do you want it to actually send emails? I'm not going to actually feed this, but I'm going to put this in here this way. All right, so let me explain what I just wrote. We need a .env file. Um, when you put a dot in front of a file on a Linux file system, it's hidden. It's not something that even if you do have directory uploads that you can see it. There's some other stuff that happens on the back end through the htaccess and the server configuration that will actually protect that file from being accessed by people who shouldn't. But essentially, it's just a little text file. Um, Once this creates it, I can show you that text file, but there are other ways to send emails. So it mentions this thing called HTML or email.js. Or you could link it to like a type form. Like there's so many different ways you can drop in a form. I like to handle everything internally. I don't think that your site should go to a third-party server just to send mail unless you intentionally have subscribed to something like SendGrid or Mandrill or some other transactional email service. Um, but for the sake of this site, for this demo, and for any site that's like low volume email, the default should just be some SMTP credentials. Um, what this is where I would typically say it's going to be one of two things. It's either a no reply at address, or we're going to have like a support ad or a contact ad or info ad. Those are all common ones that people use. Um, but yeah, and so the rest of it's self-explanatory. The submitter should be able to get a copy of their input with their request and a thank you message letting them know that they can, yeah, so there's two recipients that are going to happen in this form. The first one is obviously is the person filling it out, but then also, of course, you're the business, so you need to know that people do it that are filling this out, and you need to know their info. Um, we should collect certain data, right? If you're a cell phone repair shop and you want to talk to, somebody that says, hey, fix my phone, which is hilarious because from personal experience, and many will attest to this, that most people, when they say their phone's broken, they don't even know what phone they've got. Um, which we'll take that into consideration as we define this form. We should collect name, email, brief of request. These are required. And we also collect optionally type of service requested, device, populate with Okay, so we should collect name, email address, brief description. Yeah, we want. Yeah, if you are submitting a request, now there's two different things. I'm going to put the phone number in as a required field. Because if you're not going to, if it, from my perspective, as somebody who's run repair shops, who's been a technician, I've owned the shops, I've built these sites, it's a nightmare if you don't give them a phone number. I understand if a phone number, if the only phone number you have doesn't work because your phone's, I don't know, broken. So let's pull from page. Yeah, so yeah, the phone number and a brief description of your request. I don't know, I broke my screen. And so those are the bare minimum things that you need to even get a call back to say, if you don't tell them what they are, if you don't give them a phone number and and unless you add my iPhone 13 Pro has a broken screen, you don't know the person that the tech that answers that or the business owner that answers that isn't going to know how to help you. So, we're going to do it this way, right? We're going to and this is the beauty of AI. If you notice, I didn't actually list the services that's supposed to populate in the box. I actually just told it, pull from the service page titles, because we're planning and it already knows what services that this company offers. So yeah, device manufacturer, it's going to populate it with common brands. So I'm not wasting my time with writing Apple or HTC or Google, so on and so forth. I'm not writing all that. This is why you use AI. AI makes life so much easier. And then, of course, the model number. All of this is optionally. So let's click submit. And now we wait a couple minutes for it to finish. We're still in plan mode, so it's not actually building the site yet. So this is one of those things that I think separates the men from the boys. This is why I don't advocate using things like Lovable, like Replit, or anything that forces you to be within a browser. Because the moment you go to the desktop, your options for building open way up. If your entire knowledge of building a website or using AI is completely in your browser, there's a lot of tools and toys taken away from you. For example, you it could have analyzed the image like we did earlier by simply uploading it. And I could have also fed the image to open code, but because we're in the working directory of the site, then we're going to just tell it to read the folder. Here's the other part. We're picking a stack. In my experience, when I first did it, when I first got into vibe coding and building a real application, it was using Abacus AI. and I used its Steep agent from the browser because at the time I didn't understand the value of going on the desktop. I knew that, VS Code's a very popular tool for um, developers that hand code things, but I didn't realize that you could do that sort of thing with vibe coding as well. Which, by the way, you can configure VS Code to do some vibe coding things. There's a plugin called RuCode, and you can definitely configure that to use like Nexum Router. But for the sake of this video, again, we're using open code. But the other thing that those web-based systems lock you into is they tell you what stack you're going to use. You don't get to pick that stack. If you don't know what you're doing, you're just going to think that it picked it because that's what's best for AI. No, that's a if I literally saw a guy explain this to his client in person, like I was there, I was in the room, I literally watched this guy tell his client, "Oh, that's what's best for AI." I don't know if the guy believed it or not. I hope not, but yeah, that's a story for another time. But at any rate, what it likes to do is set up something called Node.js and Express. If you notice, this is recommended. This is what most AI platforms will default you to. And so there's a few problems that I have with it. It's an entire server environment. Setting this up, even just for the dev, even on Linux, even on my system that already has all of this set up, could take another 20, 30 minutes just to make sure the environment's right. The only interactivity that we need for this project is a contact form. That is so simple. You don't need, that's like saying that you need um, to buy an entire dishwasher just to wash one of your pots and pans. No, you don't. And we got a few other choices here, Python and Flask, or you could feed it your own. I don't have enough experience with Python and Flask combinations in this environment to really say if that's good or not. To be honest with you, to me, it just feels like the same situation with the Node.js thing. Um, but the most traditional way this is done is PHP. Simple, widely supported on cheap hosting. Again, if you're not trying to spend a lot of money on this, this is why you can go, why I don't like a lot of these vibe coded systems. They force you into using hosting platforms that cost you 20, 30 or more dollars a month when you can go to a site like DreamHost or People's Host or do what I do and self-host with a panel of your choice, and you end up, and it's a PHP environment called a LAMP stack, Linux, um, MySQL, PHP, and so, but we want simple. Remember, the PHP can read the env file. It's just a text file. .env might have triggered it to think that we should use Node or Python because those will typically read .env files. But we're going to go with PHP. It's the simplest one. This is the one that's going to let you get on the cheap hosting. This is the one that's going to let your site scale. This is the one that's going to allow your site and that cheap hosting account or cheap VPS that you can get from, say, InterServer for $3 a month. This is what's good. This is the ticket to making it work with the least amount of bull crap. So we're going to hit next. How do you plan to deploy this? So we're going to talk about this. Remember everything I just said about how you could go with cheap hosting versus the fancy stuff? We're going to talk about the options that they give here. So there's VPS, self-hosted. We are going to default to that. There's split deployment. Um, that makes it more complicated. You know, it says front end on Netlify/Vercel. Those are hosting providers that specialize for developers. Now, there are absolutely many situations where something like Vercel is a solid choice. Vercel even has a free tier, but it spins it up on a VM. It kind of assumes that the person using it knows how to run Linux servers. So if you're not a developer, if you are not a sysadmin, and you are just a regular average Joe that's running their phone repair shop or cleaning business, and maybe you know your job, but you don't know this kind of job, you're going to go with VPS/self-hosted. This is going to assume, and this will still work on something like, if you get like I said, a regular shared account. So like People's Host or DreamHost or whatever you want to use, that's the ticket there. In this case, there's no value in saying type your own answer unless you very specifically have something you want to use. So we're just going to hit submit, because what's going to happen is we're going to use something called FileZilla to upload our files. So we're still in planning mode. We're not actually building it. It thinks it's got enough data to build. I think we've got enough data to build. I'm going to check it, change it to build, and I'm just going to tell it to proceed. It's a one-word command. It knows what it means, and it's not like a command. It's not like the old days where you had commands that you have to like it only knows how to respond like in a DOS prompt or whatever, but it understands the full context. It knows it's got a plan, and it said ready to start building, so I just tell it proceed. And so this process can take a few minutes. This is not an instant, it's not an instant, you know, anything. We are almost an hour into this build in real time, and we don't even have a site to look at. We've just done the planning, and we've had a few shortcuts that have negligible impact on site build time, as in we're using placeholder data versus using actual data, just as I could have in if you remember, every step that it asked, do we use placeholder data or whatnot, the option to give it the real data was there. And so like if you know the address that you're going to use, for example, you should be able to spit that out or copy paste it just as quickly or quicker than I did telling it to do the placeholder, because I'm explaining this to you as we go along. So we're not, yeah, so again, we're building. As it goes through the process, it is actually crossing things off its list. And so there's a bunch of stuff it's got left to do. It's currently building the index page. It's it's going to do that for each page. And when it gets done, we're going to load up and see what it has, because we're going to, we're going to check its work. Um, Again, you don't use AI and rely on AI to do all the thinking for you. It helps you. It's a tool. It's almost like the difference with like using a manual screwdriver versus using a cordless one or electric drill to turn screws, um, with the difference that you can talk to your drill now. And so the thing still doesn't do anything unless you pick it up, pick up the mouse, put your hands on the keyboard and start telling it what you want it to do. So we are still building the index page. If we go in here, remember we started with graphics and logo.png. It's already created the JS and CSS folders. And when we see yep, it just built index.html. So if we go back and we look, there's our index.html. So and because it built index.html and it had to make design decisions initially for that one, now that we're moving on to other pages, these other pages should go at least a little faster or significantly faster, depending on what kind of methodology it uses for design. Remember, we've already told it what colors to use based on the logo that we generated. We've already told it what stack to use. We've already told it. We've had an entire discussion for about an hour. Well, it's probably more like 30, 40 minutes to be honest, because I think it took, we got the logo up pretty quickly. I explained it pretty quickly. But yeah, this is the initial point. This is the point at which all sorts of people think that don't know what they're doing, that have never built a site, that have no experience. They watch guys on YouTube and wherever else that edit their videos and do it very quickly, where you might see a 30, 40-minute video or an hour video that shows a compressed web build for time. And I do plan on doing videos like that in the future because not everything needs to be long and drawn out. I just want to do this live, on air, on stream, in front of everybody from start to finish. The process that I go through when I build sites. I want you to everybody to understand why it takes as long as it does to build sites, even with AI. Because if I was doing this and loading this up into, WordPress or going into Webflow and building everything from scratch, or even going through the process of picking templates, remember, that whole process of picking a template, unless you know what template you're going to use, um, it could take a few hours to figure out and customize it because that's the other part. It's a template. It's not your final design. It's just something where, okay, we have this template, but maybe we need to tweak the colors. Maybe we need to make some other changes. Um, and so that's the important part of that is that we make sure to make the right choices along the way. We're building this we're building this from scratch. One of the cool things about AI is if you do go out and you find a theme that you like, you can download it and you can tell it to, hey, here, I have a theme, here's the file. We're gonna build the site using this theme. So instead of going through all of this, you would go through most of what we just went through, but at that final step before just me telling it to proceed, because you still want to pick the colors, you want to make sure that everything jives with your logo. I'm glad this did this because Diagram likes to do this. I don't actually know why. I just think it's probably overloaded servers. This isn't fatal. You just tell it to continue. It knows where it was and it picks right up. So we have index and services. Um, let's just look at our index page while that's cooking. And this looks really nice. This matches the color. Um, one of the things I'm going to do, and it likes to do this by default, is if you notice it's put the site name next to the logo, and that's very redundant. I think that's disgusting, but it's not the worst. It's not the worst mistake. There are people who prefer it that way. I don't. I don't want to build anything that looks redundant like that. I'm trying to fix my hat. My bill isn't normal, but yeah, it doesn't matter. But yeah, we're building the site. It's got services. Let's look at services. Let's see what it did for services. One of the things that you'll probably notice too is it's not using very many pictures, right? These are going to be things like these are icons from something like Font Awesome, and so that's because that's what's easiest to put in. We're going to be replacing a lot of these with actual pictures, and where we get those pictures, and they're not all AI generated, by the way. I don't even think these models can generate images, but that's okay. That's not a limitation that we have to worry about. That is flat out something we can work with. There are sites out there with royalty-free images. You have like Pixabay, you have Unsplash. Those are the main two. There's a bunch of others. There's even sites where you can get vector images that are useful for other things. But yeah, so right now it's building the contact.html with form. And yeah, so what it's after it builds the form, it's going to write the env and then an env.example file. That's standard practice in dev, and it's also going to build a submit contact.php. So that's the piece that goes behind the scenes. So after you click submit, it has to feed that to a program that actually guides it through, actually sending the mail. That's the part that does something, right? And so with contact.html, a form, so for those that know a little bit about HTML, if you're working with forms, um, there's an action, right? Post or push or whatever, and then you tell it the script that's going to actually process it. So in this case, it's going to be submit underscore contact.php. Yeah. And again, none of this is instant. I could probably get better, faster performance if I was doing this on a faster computer, but I like the pace this thing goes at, so I've never really given too much thought about that. But it does work. It is dependent on, you know, and this isn't a very, very fast system. This, you know, like I run OpenClaw on this system as well, but we're not really pushing the system that hard. I mean, it looks like you're pushing it hard, but it really isn't. Um, so looks like it's working on the last file, build submit contact.php. So before we push this off to a server for the whole world to see, we're going to look at it locally. Because I have PHP on this system, if I actually submit the form, it'll try to submit through what it thinks are valid credentials. It might give an error because we don't have proper things, but the point is, we're almost done here, and then we're going to start picking this site apart. And we're going to have it fix things in real time, piece by piece by piece. So it just finished, and it's telling us everything that it does. So one thing here that I want to point out is that um, it's using PHP mail by default instead of using SMTP. So if you don't actually tell it, it's going to try and send whatever it wants through the for the send mail function on your server. Most professional hosts has that disabled. If you are deving local on something like a Mac or Linux machine that sits at home, your ISP is probably blocking outbound port 25. So this is never going to work. But let's go back over here. So we already looked at this. These are okay. We want to click things like make sure going to the contact. See, the contact form did everything that we said. Remember when I said pick the common brands? There they are. Pick the services based on our services list, and then it puts a little red star, full name, email, phone number. Those are required. Everything else is optional. Describe the issue. Um, so we go to services. Again, we already looked at that page and it looks really good, but we got to fix these because these should be actual pictures. And then there's the about. And I love this is an example of AI generated content. I think it BS's things really good. Like unless you had a particular message on your site, I would actually just go with this. So if you were to have somebody, if you were to write this or pay somebody to write this could add a couple days to the turnaround time to build your site. So, and I just want to point out, and I should have mentioned this in the beginning, but most people that are quoting websites quote it in terms of how many weeks. The fastest that I've seen is usually 2 weeks. But in general, if you're going to an agency or a busy designer that's got other active projects, they might tell you 2 to 4 weeks for turnaround time. One of the things that will save time, save costs, save all sorts of things. Time. If you want to get your site built quicker, um, you provide that content for them. In the case of AI, we didn't prompt it to write content because it just understands that it knows it's supposed to. So we have these. So if all of this is good, now obviously, there's meet the team. And let's say if you don't want that, you could tell it to remove the meet the team. But we're going to leave that like it is. It did decent with the footer, but we're going to make some changes because we want the logo here instead of this. So let's go here. In the header, remove the in the footer, replace the site name with the logo. Let's see what it does with it. We're going to see if this, so sometimes we run into sizing issues, formatting issues, and when this is done, I might actually show you something that I think is really cool. It's a CSS trick um, that can actually change the colors and the filtering, the way the pictures, the logo actually looks. So again, it takes it a few minutes for this to run usually because none of this is instant. Despite the fact that everybody wants to believe and wants it to be a thing where you just type things and it goes instant. There are models and hardware coming out that will get us to a near instant point. But for the tools available to me, the tools available to you, the tools that exist currently that are most affordable and most practical, we don't really have that. It's not going to be instant. So you have to give it a few minutes. It's already removed the site name from the header. And see, we're going to do something different with the footer. Like it looks good in the footer like it is, like with like the logo as it already is. But I want to change it. I want to change it up a little bit. There's a little nice touch that I use. And instead of using the colors, so yeah, we'll do that in a second. So now we Control Shift R. So now we have that there. We have the logo. That's gone. Let's change the way the footer logo is to font color in the footer. All right, so that's what we're going to do. Um, it's iffy if this is actually going to work, only because the background of white is hard-coded into that image. Now, it does have the ability to check that. Whether or not it actually does, we'll see in a second. So it's already looking at logo transparency, which is important. It's looking at the colors. One of two things is going to happen. It's either going to use the CSS trick that enables this, or it might even generate an all new image. And once it's done, yep, there we go. Yeah, it's not done yet, but once it's done, we're going to resize it as well, because I think this is too small. I could be wrong, but I think this should be, just a bit bigger. And so while this is going, we can actually send it another command. Let's increase the, we'll just do 150%. Okay, it finished before I finished typing, so let's refresh that. Look at that. Actually, do the same with the header, and yeah, I like that so much that I think our header is going to look a million times better. And if we decide it doesn't look good, but I like this a lot. That looks really good. And that's an example of what you can do with AI. That's an example of CSS tricks. Um, and then you could ask it and prompt it for, did you use CSS to accomplish this, or did you generate a new image? We could actually answer that here. So if you go into, you only have one logo dot. Yeah, it didn't generate, oh yeah, it did. It generated a logo white. So that's what it did. Um, but there are CSS tricks for doing that. And so I don't know how long this video is going to take. We are an hour and 20 minutes in almost. So let's, yeah, and we'll see how long it takes to build. Now, there's a lot of stuff you can do with a cell phone repair shop site. It isn't, it isn't, yeah, there we go. I like it big like that, but let's say somebody thought that's too big. Change it to 125%. So let's just see if we go a little bit smaller, maybe that looks better, because that is kind of large. And mind you, so far we're looking at it from the perspective of a desktop. We're going to I'll show you how to do mobile view on your computer because this is all done in the browser. But okay, it just finished. So let's footer logos. Okay, so we did that. And let's do a hard refresh. Let's leave it at that. I actually think that looks better than being enormous, but I made mine enormous on this site. So let's go back to what we were looking at here. So the next thing that we got to fix, I don't think we need to change. We could, you know what, we'll change these two, but more importantly, these have like all of these pages, they're using placeholder stuff. Um, we'll come back to the index page later. One of the cool things too is if you mouse over call now, if you have a program on your computer that's meant for phone calls, it'll open it. Like I use found on my other computer. Um, but it also works if you're browsing it from your phone. It just opens up the dialer that's on your phone. So it's this link type called tell. And if you look in the bottom left corner, it shows you the link that you're going to click. So we're going to not touch the services, right? Or the index page. We'll come back, we'll circle back to that later. And then we'll circle back to the contacts later. But right now on the services and about page, we're using placeholder images and we need to change that. So on the services page, we currently use the about page. And we're going to put this in plan mode because there's a whole bunch of stuff that can go wrong with that. But while that's cooking, let's talk real quick. This is a point where if you are really truly building the site, you wouldn't do what I just did for the headshots. You would do the same. You could do that for like for the services. The other side is depending on your business and how much work you've done and all of that. You probably do have pictures that may actually be good to use here. So like maybe you do have a good picture of a broken phone or a before and after picture that should, like before and after photos are great for marketing and you should definitely use those on social media and your website where it makes sense. But yeah, um, we can usually ignore the web fetch errors like we're getting. It'll tell you if there's a real problem. There's other ways for it to get it. But yeah, like because this is a demo site and it's not a real company, we're just going to grab placeholder shit. Yeah, so there we go. I can't directly access. How would you like to proceed? So this is why we use plan mode instead of build mode. This is why I switched it, because I knew this was going to be a problem. It was going to try, it was going to fail. We were going to end up with placeholders that didn't work, and we'd be wasting 20, 30 minutes at least just straightening out the pictures. So a couple choices here: use Unsplash, use Pixabay directly. I'll provide image URLs, type your own answer. I don't have images to submit, so we're going to use Unsplash for this. Unsplash source URLs directly, and we'll see what it does. Now, if it, and for the sake of the video and to keep it from going into like a 6 to 8 hour long video, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time tweaking this unless it picks something terrible, which sometimes it can. Um, like for screen repair, if it puts a picture of a giraffe, obviously we're going to prompt it and fix it on the air. But if it just shows us a screen of some kind, I'm going to accept it. Yeah, just so you know, I've been talking a whole bunch. I do have asthma, so I'm just letting this cook while I catch some breath. I'm actually going to take an intermission here. Um, I want to take a break for a couple minutes, let that finish and catch my breath. I'll be right back with you. Promise you're not going to miss anything. Booking tool. You could book appointments. You can do all sorts of cool things with these. And maybe I'll return to Cracked Up in a future video and show you how to integrate those. Tell me what you would like to see. Put it in the comments. Tell me what you would like to see me do next and show you how to do with this site. Testing. All right, so I paused the video part, but I'll keep talking. Do these Unsplash images look good for the services and team sections? Honestly, I have no effing clue. Um, we'll just proceed with those. We'll hit submit because we're still in planning mode. Now I just switch it to build mode. So the next instruction I give will be for it to build. So it should still be in planning mode, so it shouldn't actually update it. It should catch that it's in planning mode, but we'll see what it did. Maybe it actually changed when I changed the selector. We'll see. All right, do it. Yeah, there we go. So that's going to take it a few minutes. I'm just going to mute myself while this goes. That worked. Thought I muted myself. I'm sorry. All right, so it looks like it finished. Let's see what damage it did. Let's see how bad it picked pictures. Okay, that image is a little bit tall. This image is fine. That image is fine. And that image. No. So technically, some of these images aren't that great. Um, the only thing I don't like is this made this significantly, like there's too much up here and too much at the bottom, and it added all this white space here for screen repair. So let's take inventory of this image for screen. We should. Now we're chaining vertical center. So we're going to, the software issues is not a software thing. It looks kind of cool though, but I don't think image for, was it so what was the wording? Software issues is not appropriate. Needs. Let's see here, and then charging port repair is the same situation. Uh, should show soldering or. All right, so let's just have it fix that. And just so you know, while we're in this, we are a little over an hour and a half into this build process. When we started, all we had was a name and an idea. And at this point, we are now looking at a website that may or may not function. And in case you're wondering from beforehand, we would have saved time. We would have already fed it the SMTP credentials so it could live send mail. And if we had that, we would actually be testing that. I'm not going to go through the process of testing, but I can tell you that between the time for narration and everything else, if I was just building this without talking about it, I'd have already done all that, and we would still be an hour and a half in, maybe. But so this is something that its diagram is choking again. So I just had to tell it to continue. Yeah, it wasn't kidding. Over 21,000 seconds. Um, it would have literally waited over 3 days. There's 7,200 seconds in a day. No, in an hour. 48,000. I don't know. I'm not. I I don't like doing math, but the point is, it would have taken forever for it to restart on its own. So we're going to give it a couple minutes. I just want to see if this is actually going to pick up on its own or if I have to prompt it to continue. I'm super impatient, so I just told it to continue, and we'll just give it a few minutes and let it do its thing. So it looks like it saw the things that needed to change. It's executing the changes. So here, I spoke too soon. Let's see what it did. Didn't do anything with the screen repair. Okay, so it got a few things backwards. So first things first, we need to know, we need to tell it software. No. So one of the things that people mess up on a lot with AI is they will try to give it too many things to change at once. Because it's having trouble with this, we're going to break down the steps that we need to fix. And instead of saying fix all these issues on this page, we're going to fix smaller issues in iterations. So yeah, the image for the software issues is broken. But if you notice, that should be for software. This image should be here, but we don't know what this image should actually be. It might have picked something better. It says it finished. All right. Yeah. Okay. I like this for software issues. So, okay. What the image you picked for. Yeah. So we're going to try that again. It is kind of fun to watch these things go and do their thing. And again, this is a live build, so you're not watching something that's been cut, that's been compressed, that's been reduced to a short 20, 30-minute video. And that's because I don't want to lie to you guys and give you guys the impression that this can be done. I want you to see my thought processes. I want you to see what I do. Um, yeah, so let's see. It changed the software issues. So this images with glasses should be moved up here, and this should be something completely different. Control Shift R. Okay, that's great. Okay, so at this point in time, I don't want to keep messing with charge port repair image only because we could spend the next 20, 30 minutes racking our brains trying to fix this. So instead of prompting it, let's go to Unsplash. And I can't remember. Yeah, it's unsplash.com. So we're going to go to Unsplash. And let's just see what happens if we tell Unsplash charge port. So in this case, this image, copy link. Charge port should be And just so you know, so you're aware, what's actually happening is we haven't loaded these images into our local site for performance reasons. We are going to want to, after we get the images decided on, while that's working, let's go and look at our About page. And I think this is fantastic. We got headshots. Um, you know, if you're taking actual pictures of your staff, you can get better headshots and do some more graphics work to make them lined up. Like that looks good and that looks good. This should be a little bigger. You know what? Let's just see if we can fix that in CSS. We're going to open up a new session on about us, on about page. Yeah, we're going to try and see if we can't just, so that's the other thing. You can have multiple things going on at once while you're waiting on one issue. You can go to another. If I'd have done this quicker, we might have moved through this build a little bit quicker, but it made more sense to, oh, what the hell, we're in plan mode. Yeah, so in theory, this should just send it. So right now we got 2 sessions going. And so again, this is why I like tools like OpenCode over tools like Replit. Like one of the limitations of Replit is how many active sessions you can have. And I notice the same thing with Abacus and the others. When you own the hardware, when it's your computer and you're doing the dev on it, like with OpenCode, you can have as many as you want. If I could somehow do like a dozen of these going on at once, and just so you know, each one of these icons on this strip over here are different projects that I'm working on. It said the tech image has been fixed, so let's refresh that. Um, and that's better. That's better. I'm not going to keep playing with it, but you could make it a little bigger. So let's go back over here. Okay, I can't. Okay, it wants the image. Okay, it wants the image URL. Copy image address. Let's see. Let's see if that works. All right, so it said it did it. And by God, it did. So that's good. So the problem with the screen repair image is it still hasn't, yeah, so it hasn't done the right size. So it could just be the image that we picked didn't make any sense. So let's just do phone screen. Like there's all sorts of ways that you can look. And we got all sorts of really cool pictures for phone screen. Um, that looks good and bad at the same time. I don't think that would be, but all of these shows the phone screen. Like that's kind of a glamour shot there. That's basic. That we're going to have a problem with this where this is the star of things and it's not zoomed in enough. But if we take this image, replace, yeah. So this should be it for those 2 pages that we actually care about. Um, I think we could probably do some more stuff with the home page. So what we're going to do is let's replace this with, okay, first things first. There we go. Look at that. Okay, so now we have, we're still working on this. You don't want to bounce between things like I just tried to do, because then it makes the whole process more confusing and more stressful. So we know that we got to make 2 changes at this point. There should be a hero image here. We'll decide that next, but first let's finish this page. If you look, this is good. Water damage recovery is good. We might change the image there. Software, so we know that this is good, and this is good. So battery replacement's a definite yes, we need to change. And the image for water damage recovery is a maybe. I think it does need to be changed because this doesn't really communicate water damage. But let's start with battery replacement. Let's go to Unsplash and see what kind of beautiful things that we can find. Okay, so you got to watch out for that because those are Getty images. But this is good. This shows something completely dead. And that kind of replace. So that we're going to replace battery image replacement with that. And while that's cooking, we're going to like a wet phone or, oh, that might have been a better picture for the cracked screen. We're going to revisit that. But for a wet phone, let's just get a feel for what it's trying to show. I like this picture. It doesn't show it damaged, but it definitely shows a wet phone, definitely something. Change water damage image to this. And cracked phone, let's change it. Oh, this would almost be good, but it's 2026 and iPhones haven't had home buttons in a while. And I'm not a fan of what that might communicate. This is specifically for back glass, so I wouldn't use that. That doesn't look too that looks like it's, yeah, I want something that's completely effed. Like this. That one's good too. And let's just see what else they have. Because if you click load more, it gives you more. Again, that shows a dated phone. That looks like an old Google Pixel. It doesn't matter the brand of the phone you use in these, by the way, but this is simple. I like that. And that looks clearly effed, so we're going to pick that. Hold on, what's the verbiage that we use? Screen repair should be change screen repair image to that. And so after we confirm that's been changed, we'll move on to the hero image for the home page. And then that begs the question, do we need to change that part on the services and about pages? I don't think so. No. That's messed up, just so you know, because it's not done yet, I think, or maybe I completely boogered it. The image doesn't load. Let's... Oh, you know what? That's because that's a premium photo. And its download is locked. Okay, I didn't catch that. That's why it failed. Okay, so we got to keep going. So that's one of those things you'll run into. A lot of even the royalty-free image sites have things. Yeah. We're going to stop that. Change the screen repair image to. You don't always have to worry about typos because it understands what we're doing. Transpose two characters, which this is beneficial, especially to those who may not be very good at typing or very good at whatever language they're trying to give instructions in. Because in theory, you should be able to communicate with this in other languages besides English. Which is okay. So we're going to do some stuff here. So change this, and it said it confirmed it. All right, good. Screen repair, battery replacement, water damage, software issues, and we show something charging, and it's fine. Nobody cares. So I think these images are great. So what should we put up here? So we don't have a real store to take photos of, which could be a problem, but we don't have a real store. So just to convey something, right? Let's just do something basic like phone repair. And we'll talk about each one of these images to see why this may or may not fit. This image might work if it wasn't premium. That image could work. And while I definitely love this image, this is going to give us the same problem we had before with shit at the top and shit at the bottom. That's too much vertical. That could resize the boxes. That's nice. That could be used, but I don't think that has enough dramatic effect. Like I want this to be, this would be good if you're a computer repair shop or, a data recovery place, because it looks like they're actually doing data recovery there. Um, but that's also a premium image. This one. Now we're starting to look at some that are really good. I like that, but this shows action. Let's just look at some of these others just to compare. That kind of shows action too, but I really like this image. So we're going to copy image address. On home page, we need to set the so we're going to see what that does in a second. Because this looks good even as is, but it's just really basic. And there's a number of other things you can do with a cell phone repair shop site. Because I don't want this video to go on and take half my morning to go through or whatever, the whole morning. I do kind of want to wrap this up here soon because we are really close to an actual site that we can push. All right, it says response. Okay, so it says it's done. So let's Control Shift R this. There we go. And there's other things we can tweak with this. We could change the transparency. We could change the color filter that we're looking at it through. But I think this looks fantastic. So that's that. And again, so at this point in time, I think what we have is a functional working site. We're not going to go through and tweak the contact form. That just says map placeholder. Let's do something. Let's actually finish that out because if we go to maps.google.com, I don't know if that's actually an address. I could be wrong. Yeah, because that's placeholder. You could go in. Let's just, yeah. So if we wanted to go in and show something, which we could do, is we could go in, share, embed a map. We'll copy HTML, change the map. I could have saved a little bit of time and a little bit of confusion and told it was on the contact us page, but sometimes it's easy to forget to do that. But fortunately, I think this will still work. I don't think this is going to be a showstopper. Normally, I would use like the actual address. If you have the actual, yeah, so it says that it's done. So now we refresh that, and there we go. So if you had that, so now we need to revisit the one thing that currently we display images externally. We have a number of images that should and we're just going to put it in straight build mode. It should not have any problems because we know it can load the images, we know it can pull them. It's going to do something like wget to pull all these, and then it's going to rewrite the code. So that's going to take it a couple minutes, maybe. So we'll just watch it do its thing. Yeah, I want to wrap this up in the next 30 minutes. I don't want this to go long. Good Lord. So So as you can see, it found the images through the files, and it's creating an image directory. It's going to download them, and then it's going to update the code. So the reason we don't want to rely on it, there's a bunch of reasons you don't want to rely on external images if you can avoid it. There are times when you can, but when you rely on external images, if that image gets deleted for any reason, you now have a problem because now you've got a broken image. People go to your site and you already saw how what broken images look like on this site, and it doesn't make you as a business look very good. So you want to make sure that the images load. You want to keep those images local, and it's something that's in your control. Like if it's in your web space, you control whether it's there or not. Um, and just so you know, while this is going, I want to take a minute. You do want to go through and whatever royalty-free images that you use, make sure you follow their attribution rules. I didn't spend a lot of time looking at this one to see if it has any attribution rules. Unsplash usually doesn't care. Um, some sites like Pixabay might require you to, or there's a fee you can pay per image, or maybe just one single fee um, across the board to use all the images. So now, instead of all these pages loading externally, if you notice, they load it instantly because this is locally on my computer. So now that that's out of the bag, we're just going to click through. We're going to look. I think this looks great. I think this is a starting point. And a few things about this. If I wanted to expand this to a few more pages, there's a few things that I would do for a real cell phone repair shop site instead of just compressing home and services, about, and contact. So each one of these services should actually have their own pages. Um, but that's when we go from, this is why you go from like a 5-page, this is not even 5-page, it's 4-page site. Um, well, that's how you go from a few pages to a whole bunch. And if you're a real cell phone store, there's probably other things that you do. But like screen repair, there should be, you know what, on the services page. We're not going to build it in this run, but we're gonna prep this for another video. On the services page, we should have that matches. So yeah, I do want to wrap this video up here in the next 20-30 minutes tops. Um, so what we build for this, and we could build it, we could actually build these pages. So we'll see. We'll just see how long this takes in each one. Because my concern for time is you saw how long it took to get the images right, and you saw how long it took to even find and pick the images. Each one of these pages are going to have multiple images, and I just don't want this video to go like 4 hours. That's just ridiculous. So rather, let's see if this did this right. So that's kind of what I envisioned anyway. That's good. Okay, but before more, Should have a little eye. So there's a particular favicon that I'm thinking of. It's a really standard image, not favicon, but font awesome icon. But there's a little icon that you're probably thinking of too. Yeah, circled eye info. Yep, yep, yep. It knew exactly what I was after. That's exactly what we want. So it doesn't go anywhere. It's got placeholders. So in the next video, we're going to actually build out these other pages. It might be later today, it might be tomorrow, but it might be another day. But for now, I want to show you uploading this site. So we are logged in. We're going to refresh this because we're already in this. So we're going to want everything, right? And over here, we'll refresh just to show you that's content. We could ignore robots.txt, but right now, this is just a placeholder image from the control panel, so we're going to delete that. And we're going to upload. Depending on how fast your connection is, you might see it go slower or faster than mine. I don't have a particularly fast connection. And I also should not have uploaded the graphics image, so we're going to delete that, the graphics folder rather. Those are our source files for everything, so we'll just delete that. And now you can go to this site if you want, cracked-up.hostedandprivate.com. I'll put a link in I'll update the link to the description, but just for thoroughness, we do want to make sure that all of the images and everything works. And it looks like it does. Again, we didn't actually wire up um, the contact form. We're just using an embedded thing for the Google Maps entry. There's other ways to embed the maps that uses their API. Um, I'm not going into all that, not for simple sites. My philosophy is to spend as little money as possible and use the most efficient way to do it. There are benefits to using their API, but and a lot of tools, like if you've used something like Elementor or um, other site builders, even like with Webflow, they will use the API for Google Maps instead of trying to use an embed. It is a little more efficient. It is a little better in some ways. But for the sake of this video, I just use the embedded maps function that Google just gives you for free. So I think that's going to be enough. I'm going to come back to this later. If if you want me to do anything in particular, if there's an integration, a change, or something you would love to see, like maybe you're a cell phone repair shop and you're just kind of curious what something might look like if you had it on your site, just let me know. Put it in the comments, and